Have you ever wondered why, with so much content available, it seems like we think less instead of more? Could it be that entertainment, which should enrich our minds, is actually simplifying our thinking? And what if what you consider leisure time is, little by little, eroding your ability to question and reflect? Maybe it's time to take a closer look at what leads us to disconnect and realize the impact it has, not only on our culture, but also on who we are becoming. Stay until the end, and you'll learn to identify the signs of how entertainment is shaping your mind, and most importantly, how to reverse that impact before it's too late. The intellectual and cultural decline we are experiencing today is directly related to our addiction to entertainment. This is what Neil Postman discusses in his book Amusing Ourselves to Death, published in 1985. In this classic, he analyzes the impact of television on society and how it contributed to making our cultural experiences superficial, guided solely by the appeal of entertainment. Postman argues that fundamental areas such as politics, religion, education, sports, and even commerce have become extensions of the spectacle, all with very little collective resistance or reflection. The result, a society so distracted that it is at risk of losing its ability to think critically. Postman warns us about a fact we often ignore. Technology is never neutral. It always carries with it a program of social change, and believing that its effects are purely positive is a dangerous mistake. He highlights how television has shaped the way we think and interact with the world, deeply altering our perception of reality. When we don't question the impacts of a technology, we risk becoming blind to the cultural transformations it triggers. For Postman, our understanding of the world depends largely on the communication tools we use. He explains that we don't perceive concepts like intelligence, human motivation, or ideology objectively. Our vision is mediated by the languages and media we use to process reality. Our media function as metaphors. They not only reflect, but also create the content of our culture. This is why understanding a society requires paying attention to its media. At the time the book was written, television was the epicenter of this dynamic, assuming the role of the control center of the new cultural era. Postman gives us a valuable warning. It's not just what we consume, but how we consume it that defines who we are as a society. And perhaps, deep down, the greatest challenge is to regain control over the media that shape not only our choices, but also our way of existing in the world. Television is a phenomenon that crosses borders, social realities, and generations. There is no age too young to exclude it, nor poverty so extreme that it can't enter any home. Nor is there any level of education so high that it remains immune to its influence. Therefore, it becomes the point of convergence for everything that shapes collective understanding. Any topic of public interest inevitably passes through the lens of television, which means that the way we perceive the world is inevitably filtered by its biases. Traditionally, learning was anchored in books and conversations, but television revolutionized this process by turning the acquisition of knowledge into something predominantly visual and often oriented towards entertainment. This change, though powerful, carries a crucial limitation. Television doesn't invite us to think deeply. Unlike reading, which demands attention and intellectual effort, watching television places us in a passive position. Reading, on the other hand, challenges us to engage directly with the text. It's a solitary experience that requires confronting abstract ideas without the help of images or distractions. Reading is, by nature, a serious and rational activity. It forces us to face language in its purest form, without the visual embellishments television provides. Neil Postman, reflecting on this, argues that intelligence is deeply connected to the ability to think abstractly, to manipulate concepts, without relying on visual representations. In cultures rooted in written word, there is even a saying that goes, "The less intelligent need to have this drawn out for them." This shows how reading challenges us to think critically, to build ideas, without the aid of images. Thus, while television democratizes access to information, it also simplifies learning, often at the cost of analytical thinking. In contrast, reading, with its demand for introspection and focus, offers us tools to navigate complex concepts and develop a deeper understanding of the world around us. It is this balance between entertainment and reflection that defines the paths by which we choose to build our knowledge. In a world increasingly dominated by images, information reaches us quickly, fragmented and often superficially. This pattern limits our ability to reflect deeply on what we consume. Writer Neil Postman argues that engaging with written words requires more than just reading it, requires mental effort. Reading is an exercise in logic, in organizing ideas, in critical analysis. It is through this that we learn to distinguish facts from distortions, to unmask fallacies, and to recognize patterns of thought. Television, by nature, takes an opposite approach. It transmits information in a dispersed manner, without concern for coherence or deep reasoning. According to Postman, the visual language of television is inherently incompatible with typography, a form of communication that forces us to reflect. Television, he says, does not seek serious thought. Its voice is almost exclusively that of entertainment. This characteristic transforms everything it touches into spectacle, diluting the complexity of topics and making it harder to understand deeper and more important issues. The problem is not just the fun television offers, but the fact that it turns every experience into entertainment. It's as if the lens of spectacle is the only one available to approach any topic, from politics to science. This approach reduces complex subjects to an easy-to-consume format, but void of substance. The consequence, an erosion of our ability to think critically and understand serious matters. Postman also highlights a significant cultural shift brought about by the television era. Before its arrival, public figures were known for their ideas, speeches, and writings. Appearance was secondary. He mentions that the early US presidents would likely go noticed in the street because they were remembered for their words, not their faces. Today, when we think of figures like Richard Nixon, Jimmy Carter, or Albert Einstein, what comes to mind is not their ideas but their images. This cultural shift is a direct reflection of how television has reshaped our perception, turning what was once a world of words into a world of images. We live in an era where image and entertainment dominate the cultural landscape, and the consequences of this can be alarming. Neil Postman, in his reflections, warns about the dangers of this transformation. He describes how the obsession with distraction and superficiality could lead to the decay of intellectual culture, threatening the disappearance of forms of expression that truly have meaning. According to him, when a society is carried away by trivialities, redefining cultural life as a constant search for entertainment, the result is a public conversation that is infantilized and empty. In this context, the nation risks becoming a stage for spectacles, abandoning serious and deep discussions. Moreover, Postman points out that this obsession with entertainment not only affects culture itself, but also shapes the way we interact with one another. Genuine exchanges of ideas are replaced by a constant search for images, famous faces, and catchy phrases. There are no longer debates about proposals, only superficial conversations about celebrities and advertisements. He notes that even the notion of being informed has been distorted. Television, rather than being a source of deep knowledge, offers a flood of fragmented and superficial information. This creates the illusion of knowledge, but it distances us from true understanding. Postman calls this phenomenon misinformation. It is not about explicit lies, but rather about information that, when presented in a decontextualized and superficial manner, ends up deceiving us. It's like receiving pieces of a puzzle without ever seeing the full picture. According to him, television does not intentionally seek to deprive people of understanding, but by treating information as entertainment, it inevitably causes this effect. The greatest danger, Postman argues, is that by normalizing this format, we lose our ability to think critically and understand what it really means to be well-informed. He invites us to reflect. Are we simply consuming distractions, or are we truly connecting with the knowledge that transforms? That is the essential question his analysis leaves us with. Postman offers a disturbing reflection when he states that when we say that news programs entertain but do not inform, we are pointing to something deeper than the mere lack of genuine information. The real problem, according to him, is that we are losing the sense of what it means to be truly well-informed. It's not just about misinformation. It's about how we are dangerously redefining the value of knowledge. He observes that a society can survive misinformation or even incorrect opinions, but it cannot endure when it reduces its understanding of the world to 22-minute blocks or evaluates the relevance of the news by how many laughs it generates. This questioning sheds light on the cultural impact of our relationship with fast and often superficial information. Postman also addresses politics in the context of television, where entertainment steals the spotlight from substantive content. Politics, transformed into a spectacle, begins to value the appearance of candidates more than their ideas or proposals. What matters is not excellence or clarity, but the illusion that these qualities are present. Essentially, politics becomes a show where the public is more attracted to the packaging than the content. Even more concerning is the effect this has on our perception of leaders. Instead of exploring their skills or visions in depth, television presents simplified and polished versions designed to please the public. It's as if candidates are forced to become what the audience wants to see, rather than showing who they truly are. Postman concludes that television doesn't help us discern who is most qualified. On the contrary, it makes this evaluation impossible. If the best quality is understood as essential skills like negotiation, leadership ability, or understanding complex systems like economics and international relations, audiovisual media not only distorts the image of politicians, but also redefines the criteria by which we judge their competence. Prioritizing spectacle over substance, reason, Postman argues, is deeply tied to the issue of image. It's not just a politician's obsession with looking impeccable something. Let's be honest, anyone seeks to some degree. The point is more subtle. While we all project an idealized version of ourselves, in politics, television subverts this. It's not just the politician presenting themselves to the public. It's them shaping their persona to reflect what the public wants to see, almost like a mirror reflecting an idealized image of the viewer. The criticism also extends to how religion is portrayed on television. According to the author, everything that makes religious experience rich and transcendent is diluted. Deep rituals, complex theologies, centuries-old traditions, and the sense of connection to something higher are discarded in favor of a more digestible format, a spiritual entertainment. Religion becomes just another spectacle, stripped of the weight and sacredness that gave it meaning throughout history. This panorama was described at a symbolic moment, shortly after 1984, a year full of significance because of George Orwell's work. At that time, there was a collective relief because society hadn't fallen into the oppressive totalitarianism Orwell imagined. However, the author argued that we were heading toward the opposite but equally dangerous path outlined by Aldous Huxley in Brave New World. In this model, entertainment is not just a distraction but the foundation of culture and the dominant ideology. Television transforms our society into a giant variety show, he wrote, and perhaps, ironically, we might end up embracing this gladly, without realizing that it's precisely the kind of cultural apathy Huxley feared. Neil Postman issued an unsettling warning. The greatest threat to culture is not the lack of information, but the unrestrained acceptance of entertainment as the foundation of life. This phenomenon fuels a silent intellectual decline, almost imperceptible because we are too busy enjoying the show. And that's exactly what makes this cultural decline even more dangerous. We don't recognize it as a problem because it's wrapped in pleasure and fun. In his book, Postman puts side by side the visions of George Orwell and Aldous Huxley regarding the future of humanity. Orwell feared a world where information would be controlled, books would be banned, and truth hidden. Huxley, on the other hand, imagined a scenario where the excess of irrelevant information and the abundance of distractions would lead to apathy and selfishness. For Orwell, we would be victims of direct oppression. For Huxley, our ruin would come from excessive pleasure. While Orwell warned of a captive culture, Huxley warned us against a banal culture. Orwell feared those who would suppress the truth. Huxley feared those who would flood it in a sea of trivialities. In Brave New World, Huxley argues that people would be controlled not by pain, as in 1984, but by pleasure, and that difference is essential. Orwell terrifies us with what we hate, while Huxley suggests that what we love could destroy us. Postman reflects that. Perhaps Huxley was the more prophetic. He warns us about the charm of technologies that erode our ability to reflect. In Huxley's vision, the real danger wasn't just that people would laugh instead of thinking, but that they wouldn't even know why they were laughing, nor would they realize they had stopped thinking. This message resonates more strongly today, when new technologies make entertainment nearly omnipresent, amplifying what television began. We are perhaps living Huxley's dystopia, where distraction has become a central part of our lives. The danger is not just getting lost in the endless possibilities of fun, but getting so used to e-thought, we don't even realize how far we've strayed from our ability to question, create, and understand the world. Postman's invitation remains valid. Are we ready to see the real cost of so much pleasure? Postman predicted the decline of culture, and it's possible that today we are so absorbed by these distractions that we can't perceive their full reach. If you've made it this far, let me tell you something. You are a rarity in a world that constantly pushes us toward distractions and quick answers. You chose to stop, listen, reflect, and that is powerful. Much more than just watching a video. You've participated in a dialogue, maybe even with yourself, about the impact of entertainment on our way of thinking, living, and connecting with the world. I want you to imagine something. An old library full of dusty books, each telling a story, revealing secrets of the past, but also projecting ideas for the future. Now, imagine that each of us is like those books, carrying a unique wisdom that deserves to be read and understood. But sometimes, in the incessant noise of the modern world, we forget to open those pages. We forget to allow ourselves to be deep, to explore what makes us unique. By getting this far, you've shown that you're willing to rescue your essence amidst the avalanche of superficial it is. Now, before continuing, I want to invite you to be part of something greater. If this reflection made sense to you, subscribe to the channel. It's a way to reconnect with us, to talk about topics that touch the heart and mind. Leave a comment with your opinion. Share your experience. Your words can inspire others, and of course, if this content resonated with you, give the video a like. It's something simple, but it makes a huge difference so that more people can connect with these ideas. Don't underestimate the impact of this choice. It may seem small, but the truth is that great changes in history began with individuals who dared to think beyond what was presented to them. Maybe this reflection is the beginning of something transformative for you. Maybe it's a spark that inspires others around you to question, reflect, and awaken. So my deepest gratitude is for you, not only for watching, but for truly listening, for dedicating time, the most valuable resource we have, to something that may have planted in you a new perspective. If this video touched you in any way, share it with someone, not for the video itself, but for the idea it carries with it. Because ideas have an incredible power to transform the world when they find minds willing like yours. And remember, change starts like this, with small reflections that, like drops, one day transformed the course of the river. Gratitude for being part of this journey. We've reached the end of this video, but our conversation is far from over. Here, you'll find 2 next steps to expand this reflection even further. I won't tell you what's ahead, but I assure you they're connections that may surprise you. Click on one of them. I'll be there waiting for you, so we can continue this path together.